205 Live in WWE 2K17 Universe Mode. My name is Kaisah Wrestling, and we are coming with you today with a huge main event. As the NXT TakeOver pay-per-view is nearing us, we have a massive main event in Brian Kendrick taking on Lince Dorado. We know how impressive those two have been lately, and they will face off. We'll find out what goes on later on tonight. 205 Live never upsets when it comes to bringing really good action, and that is what we had last week when Lince Dorado went one-on-one with Tony Nese in the main event, and that was a Falls Count Anywhere match. These two men have a rivalry that's been raging for the last couple of weeks, and it's reached its climax officially, because Lince Dorado was able to tie up the score last week. Tony Nese with a one-on-one victory against Lince a couple of weeks beforehand. So now at NXT TakeOver, we're going to have a last man standing match between these two men. And you have to admit that both men are probably going to be in the lineup for a championship shot sooner or later, because they have been absolutely impressive. And Lince Dorado has a one-on-one match today with none other than the Cruiserweight champion himself, Brian Kendrick. So hopefully Lince Dorado could pick up this victory, because this is a very important victory for the Luchador. But we have to wonder the condition of Lince Dorado. Is he feeling 100% after that match with Tony Nese, that grueling match? Well guys, 205 Live has been delivering some amazing matches between all of our cruiserweights. But next week we have a main event that is going to shake the whole foundation, as TJ Perkins will be going one-on-one with the NXT World Champion Samoa Joe. So we're going to be setting up the battlefield for those two next week, as we're going to have a double feature event for 205 Live, because the NXT TakeOver is that Sunday. So we're going to be celebrating pretty much a whole month and a half of success on 205 Live and NXT, as here comes the Cruiserweight champion Brian Kendrick. And Brian Kendrick had some choice words for his #1 contender TJ Perkins last week on 205 Live. My bad, I'm sorry about that. So Brian Kendrick basically saying that TJ Perkins has no chance in hell of defeating him at TakeOver for that title. So the fans were definitely not behind Brian Kendrick's opinion, but you can't lie, Brian Kendrick is one tough SOB in the ring. Even though he suffered 2 losses to TJ Perkins already, you could never count out the Brian Kendrick. He could always come out with a slick move to take the victory. As here we go, our main event is commencing. It is Lince Dorado versus Brian Kendrick. And I'm honestly very excited to see these two men go one-on-one, because Lince Dorado has been so impressive over the last couple of weeks. He's been able to put Nese away, he's been able to put Alex Levix away, and it has been pandemonium here on 205 Live with those two running around in the rivalry. And Brian Kendrick has been on the mic pretty much this whole entire time, telling TJ Perkins that he has no chance to win the Cruiserweight Championship at TakeOver. TJ Perkins was in action a little bit earlier against Juwan Conrad in a Falls Count Anywhere match, and TJ Perkins able to get the victory, sending a message to Brian Kendrick saying that he is ready for TakeOver in 2 weeks. But we have to also ask, is TJ Perkins ready for Samoa Joe? That is right, the NXT World Champion taking a trip over here from the yellow brand, and we're going to be seeing what Samoa Joe is made of. He is pretty much the man that everybody wants to beat, as the cruiserweights here with the most overall and the most hype will go over to the NXT roster and test their chances over there. So having Samoa Joe here could be a big opportunity for TJ Perkins. If he's able to knock off the NXT champion, Brian Kendrick may have to start reconsidering his #1 contender, because if TJ Perkins can knock off Samoa Joe, he probably will be able to knock off Brian Kendrick, because 2 of Brian Kendrick's equals 1 Samoa Joe. So now going back to this match, Lince Dorado with a twisting moonsault off the second rope, and now Brian Kendrick trying to slow down the Luchador. As we know, Lince Dorado loves to use that high-flying offense. It's right there, the Dragon Suplex driving Lince Dorado to the ring. And Brian Kendrick knows that Lince Dorado is not in 100%. He knows that he is still hurting from that match with Tony Nese last week. So Brian Kendrick will do everything he can to exploit those injuries in this match. And one thing about Brian Kendrick is he is very experienced. He may not be the biggest man on the roster. He may not be the smartest man on the roster, but this man is very crafty. You can never turn your back on Kendrick as he levels Dorado down to the mat with a leg drop off the top rope. Lince Dorado looking pretty vulnerable in the beginning of this match, and he responds with a forearm, knocking the Cruiserweight Champion off of his feet. Now attempted springboard moonsault there by Dorado, not able to get the target, as you could tell Lince Dorado still feeling the effects from that match last week. He's very sluggish today. He looks to be a little bit sore, as there goes that standing shooting star. That put Tony Nese away last week on 205 Live. So Brian Kendrick now dragging Lince Dorado to the other side. He's running off the tight ropes, and there goes another Hurricane Rana by Brian Kendrick. And this is the type of offense that TJ Perkins needs to be careful of. Brian Kendrick could surprise you with some moves that you never would have thought he can do. Is now Brian Kendrick taking Lince Dorado out in a DDT, planned from the second rope. Lince Dorado getting driven out to the mat. So now Dorado figuring out that he is not in the ring with Nese. He is in the ring with the reigning Cruiserweight Champions, and attempted shooting star press by Brian Kendrick, not finding the mark. His 205 Live has been popping for the last couple of weeks. We had good tag team matches. We had great cruiserweight bouts. Now we have Samoa Joe taking a visit over here. A lot to talk about on 205 Live, and you can thank that to Brian Kendrick, Dorado, Nese, TJ Perkins, and everybody who put their lives on the line here on this show just to give a good show to the crowd. And there was a 450 splash from Lince Dorado. Will that be enough to put Brian Kendrick away? But Lince Dorado not going to go for the cover. Lince Dorado now, and there goes the cartwheel followed by the moonsault. Will this be enough to put Kendrick away? But look at Dorado going off the top rope. Shooting star press catches all of that. That's the finisher of Dorado. Will he put away the Cruiserweight Champion today? And he defeats Brian Kendrick. What on earth did we just see? Lince Dorado just beat the Brian Kendrick in convincing fashion here on 205 Live. Well, I have absolutely nothing to say to that. Brian Kendrick was topped by Lince Dorado. What did we just witness here today? Brian Kendrick, he's not in a good place right now. He's been losing a lot of momentum going into this NXT TakeOver bout. Right now, suffering a loss to Lince Dorado, 2 losses to TJ Perkins. Brian Kendrick may be in a lot of trouble as far as his Cruiserweight Championship goes. Now Lince Dorado just putting away Brian Kendrick today on 205 Live. Kendrick not even able to get his finisher move on Dorado. Well, Lince Dorado is on fire right now. 2 convincing wins, one over Nese and one over Kendrick. That is 205 Live for you guys today. We'll be coming next with the NXT semifinals in the tournament. We will see what will happen. Who's going to be facing Samoa Joe at TakeOver? We will find out in the coming weeks on NXT. And next week, TJ Perkins versus Samoa Joe. You can't miss it. Kaisah Wrestling. We'll see you next time.